Raising women's voices, one story at a time. Welcome to the She Said Project podcast. It is all about women supporting women here on the She Said Project podcast. I am so excited to be back in the WILL studio. This is Jenette Jerzek, National Director of the She Said Project, here with my lovely and phenomenal co-host. Hi, Kerry Rosso.
Hi, Jenette Jerzek. Kerry Rosso, co-founder, your number one fan.
Co-founder, but we're talking 10 years ago. 10 years. I know our podcast is, what we'd consider evergreen, but it is 2023 that we're sitting here in the studio, and it was 2013 when this spark, this idea popped into your head to create a platform for women's stories. Tell us about that.
Well, honestly, I was in the trenches those years of motherhood with my girlfriends. The women in my neighborhood came up with the mom office, where really it was just a way for us to have an outlet, somebody that was over 3'11", and our kids were all running around, and we came up with this idea to do something to use our brains and to be able to work together and to spotlight women. And now it's sort of a sentimental year. It's our 10-year anniversary, but all of us are on the brink of becoming empty nesters. And here we are, all those kids that were running around and, wreaking havoc upon our neighborhood are now either already off in the world making their way, or we're on the last one. And so it's really kind of special. Like all the things that we had said we wanted to show them, we've done it. And so it feels great.
And your mission and your legacy has lived on and grown just like a baby child, just like a little one. Since that first year in Champaign-Urbana, That's What She Said has become this community and the safe space for women to share stories in cities like Bloomington Normal and Peoria and St. Louis and Columbia, Missouri and Indianapolis and Danville. And there are more on the horizon. I'm telling you, your vision to make a difference is already happening. Hundreds of women have either heard a story, seen a story, felt the power of a story, and the world that you are sending your kids out to is not the same world it was 10 years ago. Do you feel that?
Yes, the environment, our country, women's roles, everything looks very different than it did 10 years ago. But one thing to brag you up for a second is I think about our story. We have a story. The actual She Said project has a story of women supporting women. We started that, and then we got to a stage where we had teenagers, and for lots of different reasons, we thought we were going to have to put this part of our lives to bed. And you swooped in and helped us out and took over and took it to places we could have never imagined or found the time, because I'm pretty convinced you never sleep. We often joke that we're the birth mom and you're the adopted mom, and you took our baby and just cared and loved and nurtured and helped it grow into this beautiful thing. So I love that that's also our story.
And stories is what we are all about. And you're right. The She Said has a history, a dynasty, a legacy. I mean, it's been life-changing for me. And the work that I get to do because of what you guys created, I get to meet with a group of women in a community and get to know them and work one-on-one with them personally, but also engage in the community as a whole, bring our mission forward, educate the world on the power of what we do with women's stories. But it always comes back to the relationships that I've had the privilege and honor to build, that I know you've enjoyed and you continue to enjoy. Each cast is special in its own way, but I'm going to brag on our guest today because our guest today said yes to being in a show in Bloomington Normal, Illinois, which is not too far from where we sit today. And this was 2022, and I met her at a networking event. I was introduced by a mutual connection who was also, as she said, sister alum. But the sparks flew. There's no other way to say it. The sparks flew when Ray Hatch and our eyes met, and she said yes to being a speaker, and That's What She Said. And so you've gotten to experience the joy that she brought to the stage. And now I'm really excited for our podcast listeners to get to enjoy that as well. So let's bring her on the line. Rachel Hatch, also known as Ray, our dear friend Ray, welcome to the She Said Project podcast.
Well, thank you. I feel as though I'm in fabulous company. I'll try to be worthy of this moment in time.
Oh, well, no pressure. You probably don't know this story, but when Jenette had met with you for a couple of times, she said to me, "You are going to love this woman. You are going to love this woman." Which, the defiant side of me is, like, no, I'm not. We're probably not even going to like each other. But literally 30 seconds in, I was such a smitten kitten. I was laughing, and then my head about fell off of my neck from nodding so hard during your piece. I couldn't help myself.
Ray brought a perspective to motherhood and being a woman that you and I both related to very, very much. And I know so many do. Ray, do share with our audience, what did you call yourself at the top of your story there?
I refer to myself as a W.I.M.A.W.W. And a W.I.M.A.W.W is a well-intentioned, middle-aged white woman. We try really hard, let me tell you that.
We try so hard.
We're like, oh, sweetie. But, we try really hard.
It's true. But that's when I was nodding. It was hilarious, but it also was like, yep, facts, true story, can confirm.
Well, I think, and I've known so many others, and honestly, being a well-intentioned woman from being a well-intentioned child, unfortunately, I think I was at that age just growing up with this intensity to do right, and to be able to make sure everyone was okay, and that develops and grows. And then I was very excited when I turned 50 because that meant I was a middle-aged, well-intentioned woman. So it was a victory for me at that point.
I think the W.I.M.A.Ws of the world get a bad rap. I'm just saying.
When I was thinking about doing this piece and talking to Jenette about it, I kept thinking, are my boys going to let me do it? Because I talk about my sons. They're young men. They're not boys, but, they're always boys to me. And they're in around 20, a little over 20. And they were just so laid back with it. Whatever, Mom. And I thought, I want to be that laid back someday, but I never will be because I'm well-intentioned.
No, things are too important to be laid back ever. We have work to do. We have lives to change and impact. It's interesting to me that you did raise two sons that are so laid back, knowing you and your personality and how a little bit extra you can be and strive to be.
Well, my husband is not. He's very, very laid back, which is very helpful. We always joke that if it weren't for me, if we weren't holding each other's hands, I would fly away and he might sink into the mud. But together, we walk a great path together. So he is 6'3" and looks like a big Viking. And people are almost afraid of him in line. And then there's little me dancing around him, thinking he's the most adorable thing on the planet, because he is. Because I think it's fine to have a crush on your husband. I have had one for about 27 years, so he's a doll. And he hates when I talk about that, too. So I'm glad I can put it on a podcast.
We're going to put that on a loop.
We're going to celebrate that all day long around here.
Oh, that's so great.
But it is. I think it's that balance. And I think at some point in time, the boys will always have that look like, oh, here she goes again. There she goes. All right. But they also are willing to talk about things that other people might not be able to talk about. And we're able to, or, one of them is very outgoing and we'll talk about those things. And the other will he's very, very introverted, and he'll make just very basic comments and at that point. And we all kind of listen and stop, because he doesn't say them that often. So when you get them, you're like, oh, he has spoken. So it is, it's a fun dynamic. And I think our family, especially the way I was raised with two sisters by two very fun parents. And our way of achieving was to make each other laugh. So you would always kind of go beyond, and when we get together, I feel bad for all of the sons-in-laws because we talk 1,000 miles an hour. We talk over each other. My husband says, how do you know what anyone's saying? And I was like, oh, yeah, well, we're telling the same stories we've told for the last 10 years. So, you catch on. There are little half things you talk about. But, yeah, so, I think that they appreciate that, too. It was fun, though, because one of my boys looked at me and went, you know what? You are funny after this. And I thought, why, thank you, I think. I don't know what to do with that at this point.
Oh, yeah. We have, in our family, we're the same. And we have humor rankings. At the end of dinner, then we'll do, because we are combined with, we value humor, but we also are a crazy competitive family. So then you get rated on content, delivery. Like, for example, I always lose points because I laugh at myself before I get the punchline out. But I just crack myself up. But I can totally relate to that.
Wow, it sounds like an old pop, TV show. It's great, but I couldn't. It didn't have a beat. I couldn't dance to it at that point. So. Yeah, I think we each have roles. My husband was very good with the kids about doing voices. He was always have characters, and I was always the straight person next to it. So there was one point in time when he was actually had one of the kids' stuffed monkeys and was talking and was having an argument with me, and my sister said, "I don't know what is funnier, your husband doing the voice or the fact that you're treating it like a real thing, Rachel." And I'm like, I don't know. I just go with the flow, kids. You got to go where the comedy leads you at that point.
Jump in.
I could just sit and listen to you two back and forth all day long. This is heaven. Absolutely. I feel, though, that our listeners will probably want to get in on some of this comedy and delight. And the best way we can do that is by sharing Rachel's story, the well-intentioned middle-aged white woman that appeared on stage in our That's What She Said performance. So we're going to listen to the clip and then we'll come right back. So please enjoy Ray Hatch from 2022 on stage in Bloomington, Illinois, with her performance of W.I.M.A.W.W.
I have an announcement to make. 2 days ago, I turned 50 years old. Yes! I love birthdays. I love birthdays because they invoke joy, even from random strangers. You go up to anybody and say, "Hey, it's my birthday," and generally they say, "Instant joy is shared." Now, this is a very special birthday for me. Turning 50 means I am a middle-aged, well-intentioned white woman. I have been a well-intentioned white woman for years. Now, you can tell because I care. I mean, I really care about people, about ideas, about issues. And if I don't understand an issue, I'll read a book or 6 or 7. I'll read articles and research it. I'll attend a speaker. I'll take a class. I'll earn a certificate. So yes, my name is Ray, and I am a well-intentioned, middle-aged white woman. A W.I.M.A.W.W. Well, technically, actually, I am a middle-aged, middle-class, middle-child, Midwestern, straight, white, cisgender woman. This means I am the social and cultural equivalent of mayonnaise. Not Miracle Whip, let's not get crazy now, just regular old mayo with a dose of insatiable curiosity and an overdeveloped sense of justice. Now, I will admit, me and my fellow W.I.M.A.Ws can be a bit much, not too much. Whenever I hear someone call an intelligent woman too much, I always think, "Oh, sweetie, maybe you're not enough." But I will admit, I'm a lot. Especially for my family. So, I wouldn't want to be married to me. Too much there. So power to my husband and to my wonderful boys. I have 2 amazing boys. Actually, they're young men. And it's not easy to grow up with a well-intentioned mom. For me, it was always an issue for them to, maybe not think that sexual preference is a big deal. I would say, "I'm straight, your dad's straight," but it doesn't mean you have to be straight. I would try and tell them this in subtle ways. I would say things like, when you get married, your wife or your husband, you got that? Yeah. Conquering society's expectations. Or so I thought. One day, my 9-year-old came to me with his 5-year-old brother in tow. And oh my gosh, he had a serious, serious look on his face. He said, "Mom, we have something to tell you." As a parent, I was thinking, okay, broken family heirlooms, indelible stains on the carpet, what's going on? Looked at me and said, "Mom, we hope we're not disappointing you. We are not gay." I think my face did something like this. What? Okay. Seeing my 5-year-old look at me with a somber expression, I decided I better add something into the mix here. So I said, "Oh, honey, I'm not disappointed. I just want you to be you." They were completely unconvinced by this argument, but satisfied their point was made. They went upstairs to watch SpongeBob SquarePants and play with Star Wars figures, as everyone does after a life declaration. I was stunned. Quick fact, whenever things don't go as intended for a well-intentioned woman, we're always stunned, always. I wanted to free them from society's constraints. Instead, I essentially forced my children to come out as straight. I wanted to open doors, but the way I was presenting it made it about the size of a pet door. You will get married. It will be to a man or a woman, and apparently I want you to be gay. Still, I was really relieved they were even listening to me. And for me, that day made me relook at that door, made me start to think about gender and identity and sexual preference as more than an either or. Not one or two notes, but a whole symphony of possibilities. I escaped it being an issue and began to see it as a spectrum, as different, as varied, and as beautiful as people themselves. Now, when I tell this story, people are like, "Oh, it's so great that your kid's going to openly talk about sexuality." Well, hang on just a second. About a year ago, one of my boys came to me and told me he is aromantic. Not a space romantic, but aromantic, or arrow, all one word. Now, what this means is that he loves his family, he loves his friend, he loves video games. But he doesn't form romantic attachments. He's not broken, doesn't need to be fixed, he's not waiting for the right person. He loves without being in love. It's just part of his makeup. Now, me? Oh, I love romance. I root for imaginary characters in books and TV and movies to get together at the end. I read romance novels. I even dabbled in writing a couple. I read fan fiction, people. So I think he saw a familiar face that day. What? Huh? Well, I think I was able to stumble out something like, I'm so honored you told me, but really it took, a couple more conversations and a really funny YouTube video for me to actually begin to fold the idea of aromanticism into my thinking. And that made me realize that being a W.I.M.A.W.W isn't about how you talk about your passions. It's about how you listen and you let them evolve. Oh, and if anybody really wants to know more about aromanticism, I've got some great books for you. I've got the link for the YouTube video and a journal. Here's to the W.I.M.A.Ws of the world. May we keep learning.
So I'm taking notes. I have asked Ray for the link to that video because I think you had a great opportunity to open some eyes and open some minds that night on stage in Bloomington. You brought some heavy topics, but you brought them with such charm, delight, humor, and showed a side of the world and, sexuality that a lot of people don't comfortably talk about often. And you went there, and I'm so proud of you.
Well, thank you.
You're so
Thank you.
welcome.
And I couldn't have gone there if either of the boys had looked at me and said, "No, don't do this. Don't do this to us."
Well, we do always encourage all of our speakers to get permission if you are sharing any details from the lives of others in your story. And so I'm so glad that you did. And I'm so glad that they said yes, because then we got to enjoy the full spectrum of what makes you the perfect W.I.M.A.W, right?
I always knew I wanted to have a big family and lots of kids. And the way I envisioned it was, that I would sort of be holding court and I would be passing down all of my wisdom and I would be teaching them. And then reality arrived. And the beauty was I have learned so much from them. And on topics like this, I love that I have kiddos I can say, we first started having conversations about pronouns. I went to my kids. I didn't go to Google. I asked my kids and asked people in my life. I was so grateful that these people that sometimes get misrepresented really knocked it out of the park with sharing links or finding stuff and like, hey, Mom, this is what you were asking about. This is what you were talking about. I love that.
The fact is, kids today, if you just normalize all the conversations, there's not even a stigma. There's not even a doubt that they get to be them and they get to be them and they get to love whoever they want. It's not an awkward thing at all, because for the kids who are raised in a family or a culture where it's okay to talk about it, it's okay to talk about it. That's as simple as it is. It hasn't become some taboo topic.
Well,
right?
or doesn't remain.
Right.
One of my daughter's really good friends had come out, and I said to her, because I was projecting what it was like just a few years ago when I would have been in high school if someone came out. And so I said to my daughter, did you reach out with words of encouragement or support? And she was like, well, that would be weird. like, of course we
Why
like.
would you draw attention to
Right.
that,
Like,
Mom?
why would you?
It's not even a weird thing.
The implication of saying that you should do that, like that had not occurred to me. And it was like, oh my gosh, yeah, sorry, I'll just show myself out.
Well, I think too, there's always that line, because especially when we're talking about sexuality or identity, I want to know, I want to understand, but I don't want to know everything. I'm your mom, and there are things that you can keep to yourself at certain points,
Do it behind our back like a normal person.
Yeah, seriously, what's going on? No, but the idea. So I mean, there would be times whenever we would hit that moment where it would be why are you even asking us? It would be like, it's a spectrum, Mom. Everything's a spectrum. That just kind of became the catchphrase of, oh my God, you've gone too far to stop. And I'd be like, okay, it's a spectrum. I'm going to go and do something else over here.
Yep. When in doubt, just start throwing spectrum talk around. You'll be okay.
Yes. It's, I have a lot of okay. It becomes our kind of go-to catchphrase at that point. Is it a spectrum? It's a spectrum, Mom. Which I appreciate a lot more than oh my God, butt out.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're giving you something to consider. Giving something for your middle-aged, well-intentioned mind to process. I like to take a moment to celebrate women who view the world like you do and allow space for their children to figure out who they're supposed to be and who they are meant to be, because that's not easy. And it also for, in many cultures and many times is not acceptable. And so whenever I do come across a family where, parents get to be their true selves and kids get to be their true selves, there's something really special about that dynamic. And so I just want to take a moment and celebrate that, like that you chose, that was a choice to create an environment. You had a little learning curve on the way, but
there's a continual learning curve. I think you're so sweet to think it's not done. It's done now.
And the learning continues.
And the learning continues, yeah.
Okay, so what kind of feedback did you get from your friends or family or people in the community? What did you hear?
I just mostly heard that was so funny. And at first it was like, oh, that was hilarious. I loved it, And at first I thought, well, does that mean like the message didn't land at all? It was just like a comedy routine. But I think a lot of people already knew, the people who knew me who were responding to that were generally saying, oh my gosh, that's so you. Like I felt like I was just hanging out with you, except a bunch of other people around us too. Mm-hmm. So that felt good for me to know that too. And I think it was, again, the biggest compliment was when my son, who is very funny, looked at me and said, you are funny. As if it was, oh, thank you. Why, thank you. It's
I am funny.
Dean Martin was funny, next to my husband, who is the Jerry Lewis of us. So, I mean, that was a great one. I have heard from people who have kids who are coming out or have come out, saying, yeah, I totally got that. I didn't know what to do. And at that point in time, you just listen, and you sure you look like a deer in headlights at that point. But the fact that you're actually sitting there and listening and saying, okay, thank you for sharing that. That was a moment I think that connected with a lot of parents who have been in that situation where you grew up in this heteronormative society and you assume all these expectations on your kids, and then suddenly, oh my gosh, they're people. They're their own people. I don't understand this. That was something that I think people came and told me about and connected with me about.
And that connection is so powerful. I love that you found people who heard something in your message to take away. My biggest takeaway, in all honesty, was, oh, sweetie, maybe you're just not enough. That may be a line that I have borrowed since your performance.
I think everyone should. And I felt bad because it was always something I had in my head that I was saying. It wasn't anything I had been saying out loud. And after this, I think I have actually, oh, really? You think she's too much? That's adorable. And then like, well, I think she's great, but what, dear?
Yes.
So there is an empowerment on my end, too, that those conversations no longer just happen in my head.
Yes. In the South, we just say, oh, bless your heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But thank goodness our thought bubbles are often invisible, usually.
Well, to quote Carrie Rosso, you have decided to, let your freak flag fly and not care what people think anymore.
Love it.
Loud and proud, ladies. Well, that is all the time we have today to chat with you. I cannot tell you what a delight it is to hear your beautiful laughter, to hear your beautiful voice, to remember that awesome night. You had such a beautiful cast. These women really came together to support each other, and you were just this star. You're this comedy star. I think you should take the show on the road. She's going.
Yes. You heard it first here, folks.
It's time. Our own Mrs. Maisel
yes.
on the road.
That's right. Here we go.
Mrs. Hatch. Here we go.
Mrs. Hatch. All right.
Well, Ray, thanks for making time for us, both for being in the show and here on the podcast. We're exactly where we want to be, sharing these stories with an even greater audience so more women can enjoy a piece of your story and perhaps identify themselves as, a W.I.M.A.W.W and own it with pride, because there is nothing wrong with it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your joy, your dedication, your laughter. And thank you to our friends who show up and support all of our sisters at the She Said Project. Thank you to our partner, W.I.L.L. in Urbana, Illinois, for letting us record our awesome podcast. Thank you to our sponsors. And thank you to you, our listeners. That's it for today's episode of the She Said Project podcast.
Over and out.
Thank you for listening to the She Said Project podcast in partnership with Illinois Public Media. All materials contained in the podcast are the exclusive property of the She Said Project and That's What She Said, LLC. For more information on our live shows, go to shesaidproject.com. This podcast was made possible with support from Carl and Health Alliance and presented by Sterling Wealth Management, empowering women to live their best lives.